Well, I'm here to introduce our next speaker. This is Michael Ellison of CodePath, and he will be speaking on changing the future of computer science education. Welcome him to the stage, please.
Hey, everybody. So how's everyone doing? Good? A little bit? So I'm curious. I have a couple questions for the audience before we begin. First off, so how many people here are software engineers? Raise hands. Okay, mostly everyone. And how many of you have computer science degrees? Almost everyone. How many of you have been programming since before the age of 14? Okay, some, about 50%. So I did this a couple months ago. I was speaking at the NASDAQ CTO conference. There's 150 plus CTOs in the room. And when I asked how many have been programming since before the age of 14, it was about 98%. So take that with you, Will. That's my data point, but that's kind of interesting, right? Like 150, there were Fortune 50 companies represented there, but everybody had not just CS degrees, but they've been programming from a very early age, which meant they were probably exposed at a very, very early age. So we'll just remember that. So the talk I'm going to give today, we're talking about the future of computer science education. I'm going to share a little bit about the work that we do, and also my goal here is to share insights that we've learned, and then open it up for questions so that you guys can ask about the model. One last question is, how many people are interested in CS education, like improving it, making it better? Okay, a good number, great. So first off, my background, CEO and founder of CodePath. I founded about 6 organizations. I've been in tech for a long time. I'm not going to say that much about me. You can look me up if you're interested. But what I really want to focus on is actually the crisis that we see in CS education today. I mentioned in the keynote earlier that there's a nationwide shortage of CS professors. Every single school you talk to, whether it's a great CS program, a not so great CS program, state school, community college, they can't hire enough CS professors. They couldn't a couple years ago. It's getting worse every single year. So say you're talking to CS chair at Cal State Monterey Bay, they're trying to figure out what courses they can't offer because there's not enough professors. But then many of the professors have never worked in industry. And so then you have this gap between the cutting edge technologies that are expected in virtually every company, what students are learning in the classroom. And unfortunately, that kind of just really, really sucks, because say you're going to a lower tier CS program, well, your intro to CS and then your courses are maybe designed to be weed out courses because there aren't enough professors to actually teach you. But say you still are making it through those programs, there's a gap between what you're learning and what's expected in the industry. And this is one of the biggest reasons why we see such a high attrition rate in computer science. The general population, by the way, is 60%. For underrepresented minorities, you're looking at 80% plus. And this is not sustainable. There are 500,000 open software development jobs right now in the United States. So right now, 500,000. That number continues to grow. So we're actually just not producing enough talent, period, not enough software engineers. So CodePath is about helping minorities to thrive in tech, but we're also about trying to improve computer science education fundamentally. So we have an interesting background. We've been a nonprofit for the past year and a half. For the past 6 years, we've been one of the top technical training organizations in Silicon Valley. We've trained 3,000 plus engineers. We redesigned Facebook's global engineer onboarding program back in 2015. We created Airbnb's first engineer onboarding program. We were the team that they invited to teach their mobile team React Native when they were testing that out, and then they retreated because it wasn't a good idea. And we told them it wasn't a good idea as well when they did that. The goal and the singular focus 6 years ago was create courses that professional engineers would love that would prepare them to lead engineering teams. And so we have alumni like the head of Android for Coursera learned Android in a CodePath course. She was at Amazon at the time. She now leads the Android team. The founder and CEO of Reddit, Steve Huffman, actually spent 15 to 20 hours building an app to try to get into our course to learn iOS development, and then put the rest of his team when he was running Hipmunk at the time through our course. So we have a background and understand cutting edge technologies, wanting to teach across what you'll see, technology you'll see across technology companies. So CodePath, what is CodePath? What are we doing? Increasing diversity in tech, but we're trying to do this systemically because of the issues that I mentioned before. There's attrition issues, there's gaps with what's being taught and what's expected in the industry, and there's also gaps with existing computer science programs. So you can be a straight A student at San Francisco State University, you can be an outlier among your peers, and you can apply to 150 companies and not hear back. 60% of college students in CS programs are using YouTube to teach themselves the technologies that are required for on the job. We are operating as a layer on top of computer science programs. We create curriculum with major technology companies, and we actually remotely manage the in-person courses. We're the first organization to ever be able to do this. From Purdue University to University of Washington to Cal State Monterey Bay, University of Puerto Rico, Howard University, 49 other colleges and universities. We actually are doing grading, homework help, student support. We're providing curriculum for professors, and we're actually saving professors a significant amount of time as they're running their classrooms. So the way that we've been expanding so quickly is actually because we're aligning incentives. Often the approach of impacting CS education is let's make professors use a bunch of tools, let's have them learn a bunch of technologies that they actually have no background in. We actually want to save them time, which also aligns incentives with students. Here's a couple numbers about our reach. One number that I'll point out is the Net Promoter Score in there. So one of the most important aspects of our program is creating courses that engineers love and potential engineers love. And Net Promoter Score is a number between negative 100 and positive 100. It's supposed to measure the likelihood that you have a viral product. The Apple AirPods, I forget, they're around like 75, 80. That Net Promoter Score is from a data structures, algorithm, system design, technical interviewing course that's 10 to 15 hours per week over 12 weeks. So this is what we think is possible, not just in a small number of sites, but across education, creating courses that really fit the students and that they'll really enjoy. The way that all of this works, we look more like a software company than we look like a nonprofit. Where we have a platform, we've centralized grading, student support, homework help across all the different schools, which dramatically saves costs. And then students are in person, they're logging to our platform in order to do project-based work, which is meant to feel just like professional software development, sprints, code reviews, lots of feedback, and so forth. And I think that really open source is the key to the future of education. How do we win arguments with professors, like some random professor that they kind of hate what you're teaching? Well, we have 500,000 developers using our open source guides every month. And so we say join the moderated community if they want to change our curriculum. Turns out that's a really effective way to win arguments with professors. And then that means that we have the exact same curriculum delivered the same way across every single school and every single site. So open source is a big part of this. Having a platform that saves educators time, we think is a huge piece of this. And we think that eventually this will be spread across, any place that just wants to leverage software engineering best practices in order to apply that to more effective education. Having a platform and having data across schools drives some really, really interesting insights. So for example, we did a pilot with Facebook last year, and we were actually able to beat Facebook's, let me take a step back. The way tech companies determine how much money they're going to allocate to go into different colleges and universities, it's based on the average interview to on-site to I get an accepted offer from the student population. So every big tech company has a list of schools, and they'll be like, here's our gold, silver, bronze, and then unranked. If you're in an unranked school, they're not going to look at your resume, and you need to find some other way to get their attention. So as an example, last year with Facebook, we ended up doing a program where we introduced students, and we were able to beat their interview to on-site, interview and conversion rate, with students from non-core schools versus their students from their core schools, their Stanfords, their MITs, whatever. The reason for this is that just look at population, the law of large numbers. There's so many really talented young people who they don't even get a chance to be able to prove themselves, and it makes them a lot less likely to persist. Think about the software companies that you currently work at. How many of you would hire somebody that's never had a technical internship for an entry-level position? And if you're going to a lower-ranked program, you're actually not that likely. The Cal State University system is really proud if a student has one internship between freshman and sophomore year in a CS program. So to show another slice of data, because we do like data, so this is a course that we taught on-site at Netflix. And Netflix, we were teaching their internal engineers Android, but we said, hey, could 50% of the participants be engineers that could come from anywhere? And can we do the selection? And we had, I think there was around a 2% selection rate in the course. And this shows you an example of outcomes and kind of how we do grading. You'll see that the top score, there's a 500. We make it impossible to get a perfect score. There's not A, B, C's, whatever. It's, no, you can't get a perfect score. We want to see different degrees of talent. And what was interesting is that the top performer in the course was somebody that had a background that nobody would have selected. And these were not undergraduate students. These were actually engineers with a minimum of 8 years plus a professional experience. And probably every person in this room has worked with really talented engineers where their resume doesn't reflect how good they are. So we see this issue across from professional engineers to undergraduate to across the spectrum. There's ways that we can better assess talent and also better cultivate talent that will unlock a lot of possibilities, a lot of potential. This is kind of where I'm ending. I mentioned some of this stuff, kind of predictions for a future of computer science education. So I don't think this is limited to CodePath, what we're doing. We're a team of engineers and entrepreneurs that are taking what we have understood about training engineers inside of major technology companies. We're trying to bring it to every college campus in the United States and beyond. And I think this stuff is inevitable. I mean, driving knowledge consensus by having a community of experts creating and updating, say, curriculum, it just makes sense. Like, it's a better way to do it. It's a cheaper way to do it. It represents better expertise. And if you wanted to know, like, how do we dramatically influence completion rates, persistence in CS? Well, there's one simple thing to keep in mind. What if it looked a lot more like product development? And what if you, before someone took a course, instead of, I mean, right now it's kind of like, here's a book. I don't know what you know or you don't know. Maybe this is a complete waste of your time because you already know everything. Maybe you know nothing and then you're going to drop out. And if you instead take the approach of let's assess before we guide them down a path, then you will dramatically influence the degree of rigor and difficulty for each course. And if it's predictable how much time each person will take, then, well, they end up being able to complete that. We have a target, by the way, 8 to 12 hours per assignment for every student. So our selection process is designed to try to predict how hard this course is going to be for students. We have the summer technical interviewing course that we have. You take one assessment and you're recommended a different actual curriculum and pacing of that curriculum depending on where you are. So I think we're going to move away from one size fits all, which dominates like everything from boot camps to K through 12 to everything. And I already mentioned about, I think, the way that we assess students will completely change hiring with more data, hundreds of hours of data across every single school. You can compare. It doesn't matter whether you're in a poor rural town in Minnesota and you have a low quality CS program. What if you're able to take a course that you can be compared across any engineer or any CS student? That's going to be a game changer. And then the centralized classroom operations, leveraging technology is just like super awesome. We have students that are over at University of Washington. They get awarded karma points in our system for answering student homework questions across our entire population. So students from Purdue answer questions for students at Howard and all across. It just makes a lot of sense to do this. So here's some of my predictions, and I don't know how I'm doing on time, but let me open it up for any questions if there's any questions. So.
Things you're doing are great, really, but I have two questions. So the first one, what are your future plans for expanding to other countries? My second question, as an engineer, how I can help with that initiative?
Great questions. So over the past 6 years, we've just loved to do experiments, and we've already done pilots in Haiti and in Singapore and Tanzania, because we try to pilot, can we identify a marketing channel for an engineering population? Can we remotely train people who then could be in-person facilitators? And then when they're running the courses, can we make the workload pretty light for them? So we are already looking at that, and I think that we're still probably a couple years away from rolling that out at scale. The best way to be able to get involved, so we do a lot of curriculum design development, and we have right now 6 different courses. We want to build 20 additional courses over the next 3 to 4 years. If you have knowledge of cybersecurity, iOS, Android, you're good at technical interviewing, then there's a lot of options whether to get involved in a very bite-sized way. Our website, on our volunteer page, there's a form that you can integrate what your interest is. Say you want to be on a panel that you're talking to 100 students about what it's like, day in the life of a software engineer. Say you want to correct some of our grammatical errors in our open source guides. So you can plug in a variety of ways, and we'd love for you all to express interest.
Have you looked into how to apply your techniques to other topics, other disciplines? Yeah, so we've previously trained, let's see, how many companies? Lyft and YouTube's, Lyft's entire design and product team, and we created Facebook's first design training program, technical designer training program. UX, UI, I mean, our platform is great for anything that's project-based. So there's a certain methodology of how we deliver courses, which it's across a pretty wide range of topics. And our courses will teach and train across soft skills and hard skills. So for example, debugging, technical communication, documentation, that stuff's really important to us. So it's in collaboration, understanding Git, version control. So that's a part of the curriculum as well.
Hi. I had one question around, I know that you mentioned earlier about having an assessment so that for a given course, different students coming in with different backgrounds, different level of initial understanding would be assessed, maybe harder exercises or easier, or I'm not exactly sure, but how do you make sure that by the end of the course, it doesn't matter if you have been assessed lower, but by the end of the course that everybody has the same level? How do you actually assess that? Because you might need more time for people from lower levels, right? How do you do that? Yeah, so you have multiple courses. You assess students, and you actually don't want someone that's too advanced or too slow. That's not the right way to put it, too slow. But you want to have students that aren't that different with their baseline level of knowledge and skills. And you actually do want to encourage students to go further. When we create, so I'll go back to, let's see if this is, well, anyways. So that Netflix course, for example, or even when we did the onboarding program for Airbnb. So we actually just want there to be a required minimum, which makes us understand that there's a minimum level of proficiency that all the engineers are hitting. And then we want to encourage engineers to go further and further and further with optional assignments. It's not a bad thing to have people go a lot further, but when you correct for the level of knowledge and experience, most of the level of knowledge and aptitude that someone currently has, there's usually not that much variation in terms of week over week. It's, sometimes we have an idea that someone's just like a genius and they'll just do like 100x. No, it takes time to learn. So when you have a good selection process, then the variability is a lot less. But we also, maybe this was also something you're asking, if someone's too advanced, then we won't let them into a course as well. We'll have a separate level, separate pacing.
Great. One more question, then we got to close. Oh, are you?
So you said that most of your classes are project-based, and I think that is the best way to evaluate someone's technical abilities at work. But unfortunately, all interviews are leak code, kind of 20-minute kind of questions and whiteboarding. So do you also teach that to your candidates to beat that kind of interviews?
Yep. Yeah, we do. So don't think of the curriculum as fixed. Think of we create a different curriculum to solve a different problem we see in computer science. We have a different curriculum that you take before your intro to CS to make you better prepared for your intro to CS. We have a different curriculum that's exposing you to different types of technologies from an Inspire series and understanding software engineering. Our technical interviewing course series has mock interviewing as a part of it. It has, I don't know if we know we use Leak Code, but we use a variety of tools to assess students. Our whole philosophy around the educational experiences, it should, as much as possible, reflect what you're going to eventually be evaluated on. So we separately will have courses that are more software engineering proficiency and role-specific proficiency, and separately there's a course series for passing technical interviews. The course that we created last year was actually for originally senior engineers to pass interviews at Google or Facebook or whatever.
Great. Unfortunately, we've kind of run out of time, but thank you so much, Michael.